If you think demand generation requires a massive budget, this video is going to change your mind. Whether you've owned demand gen in the past, have been asked to pitch in, or you're just curious, this one's also for you. I'm going to talk about why demand gen can really be done on a shoestring budget and why it's an important element for all marketers to at least understand. Look, underemployment's a real thing, layoffs are sadly common, and teams are just leaner today. So I think it's really important for marketers to have a general understanding across the entire marketing, let's call it umbrella. So while we have a tendency to somewhat pigeonhole ourselves, for instance, I used to say I'm just a lifecycle marketer, and I don't mean just a lifecycle marketer. I mean, that was my expertise. But at the end of the day, I'm a lifecycle marketer, product marketer. I can do content, social, and guess what? I can even do demand gen. And I think that's really important today to understand and at least have a voice or a say in those meetings, understand the way it works so that it makes us a stronger marketer on our team, across different teams, and within your organization. So I'm going to talk in this video about some real tips, real examples that I've used to build demand within different startups or small businesses in particular. But I think a lot of this can also be used when you just need to be scrappy and really stretch a budget. Okay. I know I said we're going to just jump right into tips on demand gen, and we will. However, it's so important to have a solid foundation before you start driving traffic and driving demand to your website. And let me just cover two very quick, very important things. First off is your audience. If you are a startup or a very small organization, it doesn't really matter if you're launching just a new product and you're not 100% sure on who that product is the right fit for. You might have your ideas. That's okay. And in fact, that's great. But you need a place to start. So jot those things down. Who did you build your product or service for? Know that, and you can go to market with that. I think the next level down is also having conversations with your network, testing out your product or service, getting some of that live feedback, and you might be surprised what you uncover along the way. Now, as you're doing these things, you're going to come up with a list of, ooh, I didn't think about this audience, or I didn't think about this persona. Let me give you a few really quick tips from the very start. Open up a spreadsheet and just keep a running list. Not just of the conversations you're having, but of those audience segments you might not have thought about. And what I want you to do is go in and list out their name, their title. I want you to list out their pain point, maybe the feature they tried out or their feedback. And from there, start thinking about the content ideas or the testing ideas, the things that you can do next as you're coming up and being experimental with these demand gen elements. So again, really important to have an idea of who your audience is, but to be open to your audience, maybe shifting or not being what you expect. And keep that running list and tally list so that you can execute on it later on. So that is the foundation part one. Foundation part two is, look, you got to have your workflows and your website and all those important elements set up from the start. You don't want to drive traffic to a website that doesn't work or that doesn't have a call to action button or just doesn't take them through a very clear process with you, right? So from the start, and there are many things you're going to want to do at the beginning, but let's just assume you've already set up just your very few first business elements, assuming you're a startup. But first and foremost, website conversion path. You've got to test it from start to finish. Test every single workflow that you have. Make sure it's not broken. You need very clear calls to action. If they land on your website, what do you want them to do? That should be super clear to them. Meaning, do you want them to sign up for a product? Then tell them to start here. Do you want them to contact sales? Then you can put that there. Is it book a consultation? You name it. Make that button super clear, super prominent right at the top. And then, of course, you want to set up tracking. So make sure if you have a CRM in place that you have, any kind of tracking, just so you know who's coming to your site, how long are they staying there, what are they clicking on, and are they actually doing what I want them to do or what they need to do to find value in that initial first step with my product or service. And again, that all goes back to lead capturing and routing. So just make sure, again, you're testing, make sure all of your forms work. So important. And then there's that immediate follow-up, right? So you at least want to have those initial, hey, someone signed up. What are those first few emails that go out? Now, We could talk about so many other pathways that'll get us much farther down the path, but just from a start, these are the things that you really need to have set up well before you start a demand gen or lead gen campaign. So those are my top 2 foundational responses. Let's finally get into those demand gen recommendations. Now, first off is account-based marketing Lite. So let me back up first and talk a little bit about what account-based marketing is at a non-light version. So ABM at its simplest is really sales and marketing coming together to go after really high value accounts or, wanted customers. So what do I mean by that? It's typically at that enterprise level. So you're going after massive organizations, bringing them in, and you're talking to multiple people throughout that organization through any channel in which they will respond. So again, you can think email, you can think social media, you can think phone calls, whatever it may be, and going at them with a really personalized, or at least what feels like a personalized approach. Now, that is great. However, it typically costs, I'm not kidding, in the 5 to 6 figure range, sometimes on a monthly basis. So we're not going to be doing regular account-based marketing here, but we can do account-based marketing Lite. And what I mean by that is once you have those personas, or at least the first one of like, okay, I built this product or this service for this persona, then you can develop case studies that they will care about. Think about their pain points. And this is where instead of buying this crazy technology that's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars, you can take the pain points, do any research or content that you've already developed, put it into AI like a ChatGPT, and have it help you build case studies. That's part 1. Part number 2 here is use Canva. Canva Pro is probably what you're going to need to develop a proposal, sometimes building off of these case studies as well. So again, you'll be building proposals based on who you think your product or service may be best for. And finally, use products like Loom to record yourself, much like this, talking at the camera and delivering a personalized video that someone can connect with. So it's using tools within your wheelhouse to reach out to connect with on different platforms and in different channels in order to reach out to them. Now, the biggest thing is you're going to be responsible for identifying those leads, but that's totally fine. You are testing the market. Why not? And even with these 3 products that I've just mentioned now, I believe you can do this for right around $25 a month. And again, that is far different from the 5 to 6 budget figure you'd be talking about with a regular ABM strategy. My next tip is community-driven growth. So this one might take a little bit of time. Let's just address it up front. However, I think there's a couple fun ways in which you can just get into the community and start sharing your expertise. Now notice, I said expertise. I want you to go into communities like in Reddit, in Slack, possibly depending on who your audience is, if it's business to consumer, maybe Facebook groups or possibly LinkedIn. Again, it depends on who your audience is, but let's use Reddit as an example. Find a Reddit community that makes sense with your product or service. Now, do not go into Reddit and start talking about your product or your service. Go in and remember that you built this product and this service because you are likely the expert in that area, or at least you have a point of view. So go into Reddit and start chiming in. Look at the threads where people are asking questions, where they're sharing their pain points. You might even identify a new audience here and lean in and start offering up advice. And again, you will start to be seen as an expert in this area. I think another thing, I've actually seen this work fairly well. Again, you have to be extremely careful not to cross the line of being product or salesy, because you're not there to sell a product. You are there to be an expert to help people. And with time, they will ask for additional feedback. You might get to talk about your product with time. However, another one I've seen work really well is kind of like a ask me anything type session. So you can even host little tiny workshops, again, around a problem, not around your product, in elements like a Slack or a Reddit thread. Again, this can take a little bit of time to build that momentum, but a super powerful tool for that general awareness and building of demand. Some people may not even know your product exists. Let's start to get them familiar with the idea that it might. From community-driven growth, we're now going to jump into Scrappy content marketing. Now, content doesn't really have to be that high budget, massive campaigns. It can actually be fairly straightforward and simple. Now, when we think about launching our website, let's say we're a brand new product, brand new service, startup organization, we're going to be thinking about, well, I am this, right? I am one thing, so I want to make sure I show up in the Google search rankings. You're concerned with SEO, search engine optimization. Totally understand that, but depending on what industry or what product and service you're selling, it may take quite some time, and we're talking months to possibly even years, to rank on the first page of Google. So what I recommend here is starting to think about a content strategy such as blogs and just your general website content using longer form keywords. So they're called long tail keywords, right? So let's use an example based on where I'm at right now. I'm in Orlando, Florida, very well known tourist destination due to all of the theme parks, and around us are just countless numbers of hotel options, hotel, resorts, boutiques, you name it. So I want to give you an example of if you just focus your keyword around hotels in Orlando, Florida, I have no idea how long it would take for you to rank on the first page of Google because all the big names are already stealing that real estate. So again, let's look hotels in Orlando, Florida. Now, let's think about the next level down. What if I typed in boutique hotels in Orlando, Florida? Now, suddenly, I'm going to see slightly different offerings. So again, starting to think about if I have over 3 words that I might be searching for, now I'm putting in 5 words. Think about, and you can, pull these lists using other resources that are free online to see what are people searching for on Google as far as hotels in the Orlando area. Now, you might want to go even a level down beyond that and think about, well, I'm a bed and breakfast boutique hotel in Orlando, Florida. And you might already see, oh, people are actually searching for that. Boom. Suddenly, you have a real opportunity to potentially rank within the first few pages of Google sooner than some of just the very standard keywords. On top of that, you'll start to see where your community is, and that might give you new ideas on new marketing tips like you see here on this with this most recent search. My next tip is in partnership or influencer marketing. So this is quite a massive takeaway, right? So when we think about, budgets are tight. However, maybe you do have a little bit of a budget or you see an opportunity to partner with someone where you can borrow an audience. If you have an audience already, maybe that's part of your proposal, but finding where is your ideal audience and start reaching out to potential organizations, podcasts, who maybe have newsletters or blogs, and offer up your expertise. Offer to co-host a webinar, to co-host a podcast. Perhaps they want to demo your product or service right there on whatever channel that they offer. You might even start reaching out to influencers or micro-influencers who are not going to charge as much, but maybe have a really, really niche audience that you think might be the right audience for your product or service. I think this is where there's a real opportunity to at least have discussions, connect with people who may not already be in your network, and just start having conversations. Now, my biggest feedback here is do not just send a generic proposal to all of these people. Think about and identify, and the way I've done this in the past is I've come up with lists of over 20 organizations that I want to reach out to from a B2B SaaS perspective and say, okay, here's the 20 organizations with really great podcasts or really great webinar or newsletter. And every week I go after 1 or 2 of them. And that's it, because I write really specific proposals that match their needs, that match their audience needs, and send it that way. And you're going to see a much higher response rate than if you just send a generic proposal that's probably going to be too focused on your product or service. So personalized outreach is always super important. And this also will generate or help you generate demand. And to wrap this up, I do have a few quick hits that I want to share with you. And first off, thinking about social, leverage your team's expertise. Put yourself on video, have an opinion, get on, again, whether it's LinkedIn or your Facebook or wherever it is. I recommend LinkedIn for those B2B scenarios, but share your real voice, share and get your point of view out there. It's so important for starting to build that momentum and that general awareness. Additionally, once you do start to see some of this traffic to your website and you think you have the right audience, set up retargeting ads. Also super important. And also do it after really big campaign days. So if you just hit Product Hunt this week because your product went live and you have something super cool and maybe you ranked in the top 5 or top 3 of Product Hunt, fantastic. Make sure you have retargeting set up for those who don't convert on your website. Which leads me to my last quick hit of nurture campaigns. So make sure you have a nurture path set up. That can be email nurtures, it can be LinkedIn outreach, it can be possibly cold calling, you name it. Make sure you have something set up to bring people back to your site. And even those who did come to your site, make sure they stick around. So what do they need to know next so that the product or their service can just become more sticky for them? So I hope these tips helped. I would love to start doing some more of these like playbooks, and I hope that this was interesting to you. If there's something that you have, I don't know, played around with or come up with, then drop it in the comments. I would love to hear your feedback. I started my career in the growth and life cycle marketing world, and I never really dabbled in demand gen until much later. So I'm learning a lot as I go. But again, it's so important to learn all aspects of marketing so that we can be better partners to our marketing friends, but also across the entire organization. So with that, I'm Kelly Vivanco. I talk marketing, career, real talk, and a little bit of confidence as well. And please like and subscribe, and I will see you again next week. Thanks.